In Matthew 25, there is a parable about the king who gave talents to three servants. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another he gave 2 talents, and to the last he gave 1 talent, each according to their ability. And then the king went away for a long trip. Upon returning, he caught up with his servants, and the first said, "You see, master, you gave me 5 talents, and I went out and I traded, and I got 5 more." And the king looked at him and said, "Good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I shall make you ruler over many." And the man with 2 talents likewise said, "See, master, I have you gave me 2 talents, and I went out and got 2 more." And again he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been good over a few things. I shall make you ruler over many." But to the last, he says, "Well, master, I know you are a man who is hard, who reaps where you don't sow, and whether you gather where you lie no seed. And so I was afraid, and so I hid your money. And so here I have your money, just as you've given it to me." The response to this was different. The king replies, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew that I was the type of man who reaped where I did not sow and gathered where I didn't lay seed, then you should have put my money in the bank where it could have gained interest." Upon which this servant was cast out into the dark places where there was weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, on the surface, when you look at this particular parable, it seems as though it's about money, but it really isn't. The parable of the talents really is a reflection of the gifts and the talents that God has given us. And the problem with this is that most of us, concerning our talents, are just like servant number 3. We're afraid to use our talents. We're afraid to use them for the benefit of others. We don't want to take chances. We want to hold on to what we have because, after all, what we have may have been particularly hard to come by. We definitely don't want to put it out there for it to be taken and not returned, even when it comes down to our efforts and the things that we do for others. We want to just become introverted and do things for ourselves. And then some of us feel kind of like servant number 2. We feel like we don't have that many talents. We've only got a few, so we've got to be meticulous about how we use it, where we use it, and when we use it, so that we have plenty. But then this inevitably shifts us back into the mindset of servant number 3. And then there's those who have 5 talents or who have many talents. And the thing about this is servant number 2 and servant number 3 rather, have a tendency to be jealous of servant number 5. You got plenty of talents, and, if you're doing the right things, you're using them. for the benefit of others, and you're taking chances and you're putting it out there, you're walking in faith, so on and so forth. So it's no wonder why you have as many talents as you have. Now, the thing we need to understand is God has apportioned talents to us, each according to our own abilities. That's key, because if you don't have that many talents, you have to begin to look at yourself to figure out, if I had more, would I be able to handle them? What am I doing with the ones that I have now? Do I understand what they're for? Do I know how to work them? Do I know who they should be shared with, and at what capacity? But those who have the gifts, the abilities to be able to share and have the heart for giving and want to make good use of what they have, all they have, tend to be the ones who prosper more. Now, you can argue that case with people who are like our current president, Donald Trump, who has built a lifestyle of making millions and millions of dollars. And he's very well at it, but we know that really he's not sharing that money out towards the benefit of mankind. And then arguably you have people who are like Oprah. Oprah is a philanthropist. She takes the money that she's accrued based upon her talents and her abilities, and she pours it into other organizations, other things that could benefit mankind. Even on her show, you would rarely see a show where Oprah didn't have for their guests a basket or a book or some sort of gift that they could take home from them. And those things might seem small and insignificant until you recognize that regardless to Oprah's perspective on God and faith and all of those things, she's still exercising God-like principles. God needs for us to take these talents, these gifts and abilities, and He wants us to share them out. He wants us to use them for the benefit of mankind. He wants us to share these gifts with the world. And while there is a precedent for using our talents wisely, there also is the spirit of giving, wherewith we must use these talents, gifts, and abilities to show the world God's love and His grace, His mercy. And when we get the understanding that our talents really have nothing to do with us, but they have everything to do with God, then that puts us in a unique perspective concerning our talents. Now, we have to recognize and understand as well that in using our talents, gifts, and abilities, we must be meticulous about one specific thing, and that is recognizing that our talents, gifts, and abilities have nothing to do with us. You can see some people out there who have great many talents, gifts, and abilities, but somehow their perspective on what it's for has been warped and twisted, and now it becomes a personal thing, and now their talents are being misused. If you don't understand, I ask that you look at Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was an extremely talented comedian, perhaps one of the legends of comedy. Bill Cosby thereby took his unique ability and he applied it to a TV show, several TV shows, in fact, including The Cosby Show, of course, Cosby's, as well as one of the cartoons that a lot of us older people are a little bit more familiar with, Fat Albert. And at first, it seems as though Bill is the quintessential good guy, talented man. He's doing family-friendly shows. He's not doing a bunch of cussing and carrying on and all of these things like that. So from the surface, it looks as though Bill is blessed beyond measure, and he's just living the good life, which he was blessed, very much so, for him using his talents to share out to the world. And a lot of things that you would find on Fat Albert, even on the Cosby Show and things like that, you got to learn wonderful and good life lessons that you could actually apply in your own family life to help with child rearing, to help you just simply live your best life. That gave you a picture of success in all realms of being, whether it's, you're black and you can see black success, or people that Bill associated with who were successful as well. So now you can align yourself with successful friends and be beneficial and all of these things like that. But then when we get closer to where we are now, according to the timeline, now we see that while Bill seemed like the quintessential good guy, and that he seemed good and wholesome and for lack of a better statement, Christ-like in some ways, his talent became warped and allowed him to prey on unsuspecting women to feed his flesh. Oh, how we must be careful to not allow our talents to be misused and misappropriated for our own personal gain. Believers, we have to understand this. Our talents aren't given to us just because of the fact that God just wants us to be talented. He means for us to share them out into the world. He means for us to use them to benefit the people of the world, to show His grace, His mercy, His love for His people. We have to get away from the ideology that our talents are ours and we should use them the way we want them to. But rather, we must begin to ask God, after a real assessment of oneself, ask God, Lord, what are these talents for? What do you want me to use them for? How often? How do you want me to use them? Where do you want me to use them? These are all pertinent questions that we must ask God so we can receive an answer to better use those talents. Those talents weren't given to us to do like servant number 3 and hide them off into in the ground, buried, so they can sit there until the time that our King, our Christ, returns. But rather, we must be more like servant number 5 and spread it out, spread it abroad, use it for different things. And if we're doing these things, and as the Bible says, doing these things as unto God, recognizing that it's for God that we use our talents, gifts, and abilities, then God is responsible for making sure that as long as we're doing things in the right way, that whatever we put out should be multiplied. Not only that, but as we begin to use our talents, gifts, and abilities in the way that God can recognize and understand that you're using them for the right ways, then that frees Him up to give you more. But we must remember, the Word also understands that with great power comes great responsibility. Y'all thought that was just a statement off Spider-Man, but no, that's in the Word. And it means that for every talent, gift, and ability that you exercise, you have a great responsibility to make sure that it's being done in the right way, in the right manner, and that you continue to use them as unto God, not for personal gain, not to feed your flesh, not to cater to your wants and desires, but rather to give God glory. And what you do for God, He's faithful to multiply. He's faithful to prosper you in that. And here's the kicker. Here's the best part about it all. That when you use your talents, your gifts, and abilities as unto God for the glory of God, then a lot of those things that you would probably do for yourself to cater to oneself will fall in line for you anyway. As long as they're God-like qualities. It's okay to have money, but when we make money our principal thing, then we misuse that money already. But if you do things as unto God, if you give, not only financially, but give of yourself, those gifts, talents, and abilities, God will multiply those as well as potentially multiply your money. It works simply that way. And what He feels you can handle, He will supply. If you're not handling $500 all that well, He's not going to give you more because you haven't learned how to handle the 500. But when you learn to handle the 500, He could potentially give you 5,000 next time. And if you use that wisely, He could give you 500,000. So on and so forth. You know what I'm talking about. But when we take these talents, these gifts and abilities, and we misuse them and misappropriate them for our own personal gains, to cater to our flesh, then we surely will find ourselves like servant number 3. Cast out and talents taken away. Now, I know they say that God gives gifts and He does not take them away, which is accurate. However, the favor and the grace over your life that could cause those talents, gifts, and abilities to flourish, God is not bound to give those to you if you're not using them. It's clear we got to understand that. No, God doesn't take your talents away. He doesn't take your gifts and abilities away. But what God would do with those spiritually to help them enhance and grow and flourish, He's not responsible for giving them to you if you're misusing the talents that you have. So the takeaway in this particular message is simply this. We have to look at our talents, gifts, and abilities as gifts from God used to share out to the world. We must understand that the responsibility of having these talents is not just to say I can sing, I can dance, I can handle numbers, I can handle money, I can ski or shoot hoops, or I know how to talk to people, or I know how to explain things in a way that it seems easy and simple for people who don't quite understand. All of these talents, gifts, and abilities, whatever they are meant for you to use them and use them wisely for the glory of God, not for yourself, but to show His love and His grace and His mercy towards His people. And finally, we must understand this: when we don't use our talents, or when we misuse our talents, we can't expect the favor and the grace of God to be on our lives concerning those things. In other words, you snooze, you lose. I don't want to be like the third servant, cast out with nothing to show for it, because I try to keep my talents to myself. I try to keep my gifts and my abilities to myself. I didn't want to share it out with the world. I didn't want to give to my brother that which I felt in my heart that God was directing me to give him. Make sure you're asking God the pertinent questions concerning your talents, your gifts, and your abilities. Use them in a way that glorifies Him. And He will ensure that whatever you're doing, it will prosper and be multiplied. To that end, remember that the Word does say, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." It's a promise in the Word that when you seek out God to do His will, and you do it well with those gifts, talents, and abilities, that you will prosper and grow in many, many things. All those things that you want shall be added unto you. Again, and I would be remiss to say, as long as they can be used to prosper God's will, to affect change in the hearts and the minds of His people. Don't ask for $1 million just so you can hoard it to yourself and just live comfortably. No, no, no. That's not using it in the right way. Give, and it shall be given. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. That's the way to do it. So I pray this is insightful. I hope that it helps to give you a unique perspective on your gifts, your talents, and your abilities. Begin to ask God what those are. See how many talents He truly gave you, and ask how they could benefit the world. And as always, do everything you do as unto God. May the Lord God bless you. Have a great day.
5:13 a.m. Pause. But stop.